We are the certain and the seeking, the lifers and the newcomers, the beloved and the brokenhearted, the insiders and the rejected, all of whom have found a home in the extraordinary yet intimate community of Unitarian Universalism. Those words come from Melissa Harris Perry. Good morning, y'all. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Amherst. I'm Reverend Michelle Buhite, the minister of this congregation. My pronouns, which I offer to create a truly inclusive and brave space for all to live into the fullness of their identities, are she and her. I'm joined up front today by our musician, Adam Schmidt, and all of us are so glad that you've chosen to be here, virtually and in person. For those in the chapel, I invite you to put your phones on reverence mode, silencing them so that you and all may be fully present and so we don't have any surprises as to the funny ringtones you've chosen. Those of you watching at home, I encourage you to find ways to free yourself from distraction as well. With COVID numbers climbing again in Erie County, our in-house medical team is strongly encouraging folks to return to masking. For the time being, coffee hour will continue. Masks are optional. If you'd like a mask today and you don't have one with you, just raise your hand and Doug is ready with a basket of masks, and if he sees your hand, he'll be more than happy to give you one. Completely optional. Okay, behind you, Doug. Okay, I'll let y'all sort that out. One more announcement. Les, the labyrinth maker, has groomed the 2 labyrinths in the woods beyond the parking lot, so they are ready for your enjoyment and contemplative walking. The first labyrinth on the right, just beyond the brick wall as you first enter the main trail, is slightly easier for those of us who have mobility issues. The larger labyrinth, and slightly more challenging, is further down the main path on the left in the clearing where the pavilion is. And that's your landmark. If you've never gone back on that trail, when you see a big old pavilion, look to your left, and then you'll find the labyrinth. Les and I both hope that you will take advantage of these opportunities for quiet reflection amid the amazing birdsong. And I will tell you that at this time of year, the blue jays are cranky. Was it 2 years ago? Yes, 2 years ago for Earth Day, we did tape outside, and the whole time, every time I would start speaking, the blue jays would just start squealing and squawking. So you might have noisy company for your contemplative walking back there. But they're harmless. As we gather, we acknowledge that our church is built on occupied land that once belonged to the First Nations people of this region, the Haudenosaunee, and before them, the people known as the Neutrals. May we be good stewards of the land and courageously cultivate community with all living things. It's been said that Unitarian Universalism is the religion that puts its faith in you, trusting each individual to engage in the spiritual journey and to reach our own conclusions about spiritual matters. We do that in beloved community as we support one another in faith and friendship. In that spirit, this congregation has created a covenant, a sacred promise of how we will aspire to live and be with one another. I invite you to share with me our covenant. Together we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to seek wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world. We begin each service by lighting the chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Our flaming chalice represents the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of our commitment to foster more compassion and justice in a hurting world. Nancy will light our chalice, as we join in these chalice lighting words from contemporary mystic poet Shalan Harkin. We are here to bring forth our light and hold the candles of ourselves to each other. Last week we learned a little chorus for this moment. And just to remind you of how it goes, I'll sing a phrase, and then you sing the phrase, and then we'll do it one time together, okay? You may be one last spark, we all need to light the whole world, For those of you who have growly voices in the morning, you're welcome. All right, so we're going to sing it together and take a peek at one another, because that's who you're singing it to. I adore that you're singing it to me, but I am not the last spark. So take a peek at one another. The words are easy. Here we go. You may be one last spark. We all need to light the whole world. You growl beautifully on Sunday mornings. Each of us carries with us into this time together our cares and our concerns, our joys, our sorrows. And together we create the container where we can put down our burdens, if even just for a moment, knowing that they are held in love. And we bring our joys, knowing that they are shared in community. For those joining virtually, I invite you to go ahead and speak aloud that which is on your heart, or perhaps type it into the chat. For those of us gathered in the chapel, I invite you to come forward to the table labyrinth up front and to place a stone or a shell on the labyrinth in honor of all that you bring with you today. Please join me in a communal response. In this gathered community, we hold one another in love. Together, we light a candle of sorrow and concern for the people of Ukraine, the people of Russia, the people of the world, the more than human family. We include in the circle of compassion and care all those who are impacted by acts of aggression and terror. We pray for peace and compassion in our war-torn world. In this gathered community, we hold the world in love. I invite you to rise in body or spirit and to sing with me, Morning Has Broken. The words will be up front. It's also page 38 in the gray hymnals. For those of you who are in chairs that don't necessarily have hymnal racks in front of you, there's a rolly cart over there. If you like to look at notes, please avail yourself of the hymnals. So please rise in body or spirit as we sing together. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall and the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day. You may be seated. Thank you. Our opening words this morning come from Max Kapp, Unitarian Universalist minister who lived from 1904 to 1979. He was raised in the Universalism of our blended faith family and was a strong proponent for the merging of Unitarianism and Universalism in 1961. If his name is ringing some bells, he might be best known in the Western New York region because he served First Universalist in Rochester long before any of you were going to church in 1938 to 43. His words are a perfect beginning for this Earth Sunday service. Often I have felt I must praise my world for what I have seen these many years and what my heart has loved. And often I have tried to start my lines. Dear Earth, I say. And then I pause to look once more. Soon I am bemused and far away in wonder, so I never get beyond. Dear Earth. Dear Earth, the beginning of a love letter. Dear, that word implies intimacy, a far cry from to whom it may concern. Dear Earth, a beginning, a proclamation, a murmur. Today we celebrate our dear Earth. Isn't it sweet that Earth Day is followed by Mother's Day in May and Father's Day in June, a reminder that we are inextricably bound to that which gives us life. Unlike some holidays that are steeped in religious custom or civil recognition, Earth Day is for everyone, all earthlings, including the more than human family of all life. You see, we are all earthlings. Go ahead, I know you're smiling at the image that comes to mind of maybe some of those really not even B movies, like Q movies on Saturday afternoon, of Martians. Or maybe you're thinking of Dr. Zachary Smith and Will Robinson from Lost in Space. The language of earthling is tied to Hollywood's notion of humans as seen by extraterrestrials. But all of life on Earth can be considered earthlings. Trees, grackles, sea urchins, bees, people, all of it. But too often, we don't think or act like earthlings. Even if we don't necessarily believe the creation story found in Genesis, where humans are the crowning achievement, we have absorbed that VIP status in our very cells. We are anthropocentric, human-centered, and our priorities reflect this. Who has more rights? That stand of trees, or the human that wants to clear them to put in a housing development? And truly, it's not just about our relationship with the other earthlings that share our planet. The spoils go to the powerful when one group of people is displaced at the whim of a more powerful group of people. Maybe you've heard of the Kinzu Dam, or the Trail of Tears, Joshua in the Battle of Jericho, or just possibly, if you've turned on your television, the people of Ukraine. Sometimes it is an embarrassment to be a human at the greater earthling family reunion. Now, before you write off my words as being hopelessly romantic and not intellectually stimulating, I encourage you to consider that I do offer you some things to think about. They're just not abstractions, because I want you to think about the really, really hard stuff, and then to let your heart and your head have a conversation that leads your feet and your hands to act according to your principles. In fact, let's consider our principles. Unitarian Universalism is a religion based not in belief, but in shared principles. Our principles include inherent worth and dignity, even for people we don't like and whose actions we find repugnant. Our principles demand that we do the work of equity and justice, that we work toward the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Our principles remind us that we are in relationship with the web of all life, the other earthlings with whom we share this planet. And our principles live and breathe and change as we learn better and try to do better, as the proposed 8th principle challenges us to be accountable for the systemic racism that privileges some at the expense of others. For all the folks that say that Unitarian Universalism is a cop-out because it doesn't have a creed, I say, you don't know Unitarian Universalism. Living a principled life is hard. This faith rejects platitudes and demands that we be our siblings' keeper. And as much as I love this faith, I recognize it as simply one more finger pointing to the moon, one more attempt in an ocean of philosophies and religions to define that which is of ultimate importance. For me, Unitarian Universalism is a means for becoming more responsible members of the Earth family, better earthlings. So on this Earth Sunday, in addition to celebrating the beauty and wonder of our dear Earth, we're going to blow the doors of our hearts and minds wide open and take a walk on the wild side. So let's play a little game with a little bit of friendly competition. Let me get my scoreboard. It's low tech. Everything else in here is high tech. This is low tech. Okay, here's how it goes. This competition will include one side of the chapel, which is from the middle over in both directions, in case you're concerned, because there are 4 chunks, but we're not gonna make like poor Linda be the lone person in a group. So this whole group, which is to my left, and this whole group, which is to my right, and our invisible friends who are online. So Les, if people put in things in the chat, shout them out to me, okay? Perfect. And because this is Michelle's Rules team sport, you don't actually get a chance to confer with your teammates. You just let it rip. Just offer answers. Okay, this game is to name a book, a story, or a song with the word wild in the title. So I've already given you the example of taking a walk on the wild side, so you can't use that. We have multiple generations present, so I expect a wide range of possibilities. So the way this is going to happen is I will call on, and this is also Michelle's Rules where they change without notice. Sorry. So for now, the rule is if you come up with something, just raise your hand and I'll call on you, and then I'll repeat what is said. So, okay. Oh, Marjorie's on it. Wild woman. One row. Okay, I have to go over here. Yes. Where the wild things are. Very nice. Catherine. Wild thing. You make my heart sing. Wendy. Into the wild. Marlene. Call of the wild. I wondered when we'd get that. Born to be wild. Born to be wild. One for the web. That's a good one. Linda. Church of the Wild. Very nice. There's a copy up here, by the way, which is borrowable. This is the church's copy of this book, in case you wanted to borrow it after you've heard this amazing sermon today. More wild things. Have we run out? Call of the Wild. I didn't write down what they were, so I can't repeat them. Wild Child, another one for the web.
Wild Walk in the Wilderness.
Wild Walk, that's really hard to say, all those W's. Okay, I have to say right now, the left side is winning. They're 5, 2, and 2 for the web. But we all win, because that was fun, right? So I would add one of my favorite children's books that I bought, partly because I really liked the book, and also because it refers to a grandmother as Mimi, and that's my grandma name, is Keeper of the Wild Words. And Wild Irish Rose. Nobody came up with that, because you were afraid I'd make you sing it. Okay. All right, I have one more wild thing to share with you.
Wild thing, I make your heart sing.
Go ahead, sing along.
I make everything. Wild thing.
You all can all sing this part.
Wild thing. I make the heart sing.
This moment of silliness brought to you from Lesson Michelle Buhite. Oh, goodness. Did you notice that he's saying, rather than wild thing you make my heart sing, it was wild thing I make your heart sing, because he's the wildest thing. Well, that was fun. And all of that energy is just what we need for the next segment of our service. In late March, 18 of us, including a couple of people outside of our congregation, met via Zoom on the Friday nights during Lent to talk about our shared reading of Victoria Loorz's brand new book, Church of the Wild, How Nature Invites Us into the Sacred. And I mentioned I have a borrowable copy up front. My colleague in spiritual companioning, Reverend Mark Chaffin, suggested the book and facilitated the conversation. People shared deeply of their experiences of holy moments in nature. In the course of one of our conversations, I suddenly remembered in vivid detail the exact moment when I felt fear for the first time in the natural world. When I was 10, my parents purchased 30 acres of land near Sinclairville in Chautauqua County. The land was at the top of a huge hill, and over the course of 3 years, my dad built a chalet that overlooked the valley. We went from living in the newly poured basement, you can imagine how awesome that part was, to slowly finishing and occupying the floors above, and it took 3 years. We lived in it completed for 3 weeks, then we sold. My dad worked on the house evenings and weekends, and since he was a teacher, also throughout the summer break. When I wasn't being his very helpful assistant, handing him tools and helping to hold things while he pounded dangerous nails, I roamed those 30 acres. There was a wonderful stream at the bottom of a gully and some young saplings that I would Tarzan swing from top to bottom. I ruined so many pairs of jeans on that muddy slope. It was the early 70s, and I was free to roam. One Sunday afternoon, some friends of my folks came for dinner, and their 2 daughters and I went out to wander. We had gone to the very furthest reaches of the 30 acres, and we were walking back along the lonely dirt road when a car approached, slowed down, and then stopped beside us. The young couple inside warned us that a cougar had been spotted in the area and that we should get home as fast as we could. And then they drove away. Remember, I'm 10. I will never know if there was really a cougar in the area. My rational self doubts it. But in that moment, I went from the carefree queen of my domain to a nervous, watchful, and fearful kid who would grow up to be an overly cautious adult. My rational self is pretty sure that there are no cougars in the Rhinestone woods. That watchful inner child looks for paw prints every time. My relationship with the wild changed in an instant. And I wonder if you've had a similar or opposite experience in the wild. And I'm willing to come to you and find out. Raise your hand if you have a brief thing that you want to share about some shift in your relationship with the wild. Okay. Look how well I'm walking. Dun, da, da, da.
So I was about 4 and thought that I was queen of the world and I could do anything, anywhere, anytime. And my parents rented a cottage at Cuba Lake down in the southern tier. And again, I was 4 and I loved water, and I had a swimming pool that was about a foot off the ground, so naturally I could swim. I ran off the end of the dock. Nobody noticed me but my uncle, and I ended up going down 3 times because of the seaweed, got stuck. And for a long time, I couldn't go in the water. And then to overcome my fear, I took a life-saving class when I was in high school.
Thank you. I don't think they offer life-saving courses for people afraid of cougars in the woods, but I will look for that.
My story's kind of brief, but when Eric and I were young and we had met, we were planning to go out to Colorado for the summer. Well, he was going for the summer and I was going along, and we were going to go camping in the woods in the park. And I told my dad, and he said, "The bears are going to eat you." And I was like, what? My family hadn't been a camping family. Eric's family was always a camping family. But it really unnerved me, and I didn't get eaten, although we went out for a hike and came back to snow on our tent because apparently the park hadn't even been open yet. And it was like 3 inches of snow. So we had to go to a hotel, the Silver Saddle Motel, and we had to go to wash, and we had to go dry our clothes because we didn't have enough money to wash them because we were soaked, and I didn't have any boots or any jackets or anything like that. So it was kind of a weird experience to have for the first time camping. But it turns out like we survived, and no bears, although you do have to put your food in a tree sometimes when you go camping to avoid them. But we kept going, and we liked the outdoors.
Thank you. Okay, Marlena.
I was 7 years old and living in Mexico. My dad had taken me and my younger brother to the canal. It's in Lake Chapala. It's in the town of Chapala. And the week before, my younger brother had lost a friend who had fallen in the canal. My dad said, "Be really careful." And I had on leather-soled zapatos. And I slipped and I fell in. And my dad went down once and he couldn't get me, couldn't find me. Went down a second time and he pulled me up. And I'm forever afraid of walking along the boardwalks of where boats are. I haven't overcome it. I'm careful.
Thank you. Thank you to those who've shared, and maybe some of you are thinking about your story and can share it with folks during coffee hour. Takes a bit of vulnerability. Beware. It's a wild ride. In Church of the Wild, Victoria Loorz writes, "The word wild is not meant in the colloquial sense of out of control. Rather, I use it to refer to the natural, innate way the world was created, not controlled or tamed or domesticated. Reclaiming wild is reclaiming who you are meant to be, who the world is meant to be, which isn't static. Wild means swirling in dynamic and even loving relationship, because all wild things are naturally interconnected." Psychologist Bill Plotkin has dedicated his life's work to understanding human development in the context of relationship with the rest of the natural world. In his book, Nature and the Human Soul, he created a model of human development and a path of transformation built on the inherent soul connections we humans have with nature. Inherent because our souls as well as our bodies are part of nature. He says that all of us are born to occupy a particular place in nature, a place in the earth community, a unique ecological role, a singular way you can serve and nurture the web of life, as unique as that of any birch, bear, or beaver pond. I want to share with you, as you know from our opening words by Shalan Harkin, I have been really enjoying her poetry, and I came across this and thought it was just perfect for our time today. "It's not so much that I want to know God as to be close to the spiral in the seashell, to feel the wind as my own breath, to let bird song all the way into my being. Let my bones be the ledger lines for its dancing song. It's not so much that I want to know God as to be reacquainted with the intimacies of the stars through remembering they've always shone from within the expansiveness of my own chest. It's not so much that I want to please any cosmic authority as to be strong enough to finally hold every little girl still inside of me as she weeps old tears that were never held. It's not so much that I need a particular place of worship. I want to flee less the majesty of each moment, that the humble door of my ancient heart be more willing to open to the wide beauty of the world. My only prayer is to be excommunicated from ideology and join the congregation of morning dew, shimmering with enlivened mystery and freshness, replete with sparkling wonder. It's not so much that I want to worship God as for my devotional practice to be opening my body to the living scripture of life's movement as she dances her desires through me, and to remember to say thank you with deep recognition for every small act of love that finds me. It's not so much that I believe in God as it's been taught, but that all I desire is to serve the one great heart that lives within us all. Nancy Ferry, who is on my sabbatical team, and you'll be seeing a lot of in the coming 4 months, is going to share some reflection with us.
This is little Nancy Lillian. I was going to say, this poem just makes my heart sing. Last month I was invited to join the book club of Church of the Wild, and I was stressed, overwhelmed, frazzled, disconnected, and I thought, another commitment. Do I want to do this? But I listened. I listened to where I needed to be, and I need to thank you, Michelle, for listening to some voice in the universe that said Nancy needed to be there. So I really appreciate that. Excuse me. In her prologue, I got the book immediately, and it says, "This is a story about a land where the trees talk and the waters croon, and people fall in love with birds who love them back. This is a story about an enchanted forest hiding in plain sight, invisible until somehow the veil drops, and what was unseen can suddenly be seen. You may catch a glimpse when you cross the threshold of the far edge of an abandoned field, or when, just for a blinking instant, you notice how the brambling of the blackberry bush connect you to everything." I was in. I am in. The week one, we were asked to tell about the land we were raised on. Not the people who raised us, not the people who hurt us, not the people who carried us, not the people who disappointed us, but the land that we grow up on. Instantly, my mind went to the creek, the woods, we had a cow pasture, and the ocean. I live near the ocean. I was born and raised in Connecticut, and my trees. My grandparents on both sides taught me to love and appreciate and respect nature. My grandfather was a lumberman, and I always thought of lumbermen as clearing the fields and clearing out trees, my grandfather replanted. He tended his trees, he cared for them, he pruned them, he knew when they were ready to be cut. He would measure them. He grafted their measurements annually, monthly, weekly, I don't know. Grafted his weight too, but anyway. He taught me to love trees. He would take me out and visit his trees, and he would talk to them, and we had picnics underneath them. On the other side of my family, my grandmother was a little humble country bumpkin, and she would take me on walks down the lane. Excuse me. And we would go and look for interesting things along our journey, including pussy willows. I remember in the spring, we always looked for pussy willows, and we would look for rocks and flowers. But she always told me that those belonged there, and they were not my property. And that stuck with me for a long time, for my whole life. This is not my property. This is not mine. This is the universe. This is the earth. This belongs to everyone. We could pick a few blackberries or raspberries, but we couldn't take them all because the birds, that was the birds' food. And we had food to go home to, but these birds, this was their home. So I learned that respect. And I remembered the hoppy toads, which is what we called them. There was a little hoppy toad family in the cellar, a recessed cellar window, and I spent the whole time that that little family was growing staring at them. I named them, I know who was who, and I was just fascinated with them, and I looked into the mother's eyes. It was just wonderful. And then I had a root tree. This tree had a huge root that, there's the tree. This isn't she. But my tree, the one that I loved so dearly, had a big root that stuck out of the ground, and I would slide under it, and I would tell her everything. I felt safe, I felt loved, and I felt like she listened. Then the moles. We had moles in our yard with their amazing little propellers. I would get on my hands and knees, and I'd watch them right into the ground. My mother and father always hated them, and they told me to tell them when I saw a mole because they were going to get rid of it. I never told them. I hid my secret that the moles and I were friends. Then we had this three-legged bullfrog in the neighborhood that we named Charlie. I lived near the creek, and we had creeks that all ran into each other. Unfortunately, mine was in the middle of a flood zone, but he was there was something about him. The kids in the neighborhood, we would catch him, we'd put him in a bucket, and we'd go around to everybody and show, we caught Charlie, and pride ourselves in catching Charlie, and then we'd release Charlie. And we'd do this, I think we did it for a whole summer, and it was a lot of fun. And one day, we found Charlie hanging by a leg in the woods. It was a sad moment for the people who had treasured Charlie's friendship. It was at that time that I realized some of the harsh realities of an imperfect world, of people that are hurting, people who need to kill or control or conquer. We took Charlie and we dug a hole and we said some prayers, and I played my clarinet. I think I played taps for him. This led me to my own calling, to seek the sacred, to be a healer, to be a connector, to listen, be a listener of stories. Near the end of the book, a quote from Johanna Marcy says, "It is worth saying again, we are not separate from nature. We simply are a part of nature that comes in this particular human form, with our own particular interests and gifts and flaws and voice. We humans who can hear the call are regularly needed. The rainforest is calling us. The deer is calling us. The open, vast sky, suffering invisibility, with too much carbon is calling us. The rabid fox is calling us. What is your role in this love story of reconnection, restoration, and compassion? What part of this sacred wild is calling you to be ordained into service on her behalf? And we did just that. We ordained each other into our callings. And this weekend, my calling was to go to the lake, to be reminded of my calling to nature, to just that connection with water. The first thing I did was I reached down and I touched the lake. I brought the water into my hands. I smelled the air. I heard the sounds of the water. It made my heart sing, and I knew that I was where I needed to be. And that's my little dog, Maya.
I'm going to invite you to stretch your legs a little bit and rise in body or spirit as we sing For the Earth Forever Turning, 163 in your gray hymnal, or the words will be up front. In Church of the Wild, Victoria Loorz describes her own spirituality as rooted in the Christ tradition, noting that the label of Christian has become increasingly difficult to swallow. Much of the book is her journey of weaving together her growing relationship with the natural world and the scripture that informs her faith. I'm a Bible geek, I will just say it. And so I'm going to try to distill for you what took her several chapters of really thoughtful, unfolding biblical exegesis, which is when you sort of pull things apart and really look underneath them. And I'm going to try to do it in like 2 paragraphs. So buckle your seatbelt. I find this fascinating, and you can just nod and smile if you don't. Of the 4 Gospels that found in the canon, which is the scriptures that were approved at the Council of Nicaea in 325 of the Common Era, the Gospel of John is distinct from the other 3. John's Gospel is heavily influenced by Greek thought and has what we would call a high Christology. Where the other 3 Gospels portray a special man, the Gospel of John portrays a Messiah, the Anointed One, or Christ. John lays down the framework from the start with a cosmological view of Christ. I'm assuming that at least the first sentence of this you will have heard of at some point in your life. The rest might be new to you. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This was with God in the beginning. All things came into being through this, and apart from this, nothing came into being that has come into being. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Now, the Greek word that has been translated as word is logos. Logos includes word as one of its defining elements, but it is deeper and richer than that. Its fuller meaning is dialogue or conversation. It's relational. So listen to how this changes that first couple of verses in the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the conversation, and the conversation was with God, and the conversation was God. The conversation became flesh and dwelt among us. Now, maybe this is all just way too esoteric for this early in the morning, so let me bring it to a place that might be more approachable. In the book, Victoria Loorz recounts several encounters with deer, as well as with other wildlife. She describes sitting quietly and having a doe and her fawn walk into the clearing and then notice her. They don't bound away. They regard her. The easy silence between them feels like a conversation. Oh, I know you. I see you. We share this space together. I've described to you in a past sermon my experience of quietly walking the trail at Rhinestone Woods and having a deer suddenly bound onto the trail and notice me standing there. It didn't flee. We regarded one another. The moment stretched into an unspoken conversation as we held our gaze, and I felt like we were listening. So I have a special spot at Rhinestone Woods, a little grove of pine trees along one of the ponds. It's slightly off the path. Don't tell on me. I know you're supposed to stay on the path. It's just a little bit off the path. And when I settle in the quiet of the pines, it feels like that companionable silence of sitting with a friend. Words aren't necessary in this conversation. Victoria Loorz writes, "You can love the earth by taking care of it, by getting involved with advocacy campaigns to remove dams and protect forests, by living simply and adding nutrients to the soil, by limiting fossil fuels and eating local foods. And I hope we all do. All of us need to make significant changes that may feel at first like sacrifices, yet in the end are only the surrender of privileges that were never ours in the first place. But falling in love with the earth? That's different. First of all, it's a bit of a misnomer. You don't fall in love with the earth. She's too big. You are allured to pay attention and enter into conversation with a particular being, a particular place. And then, through fidelity and time and 1,000 small acts of kindness and reciprocal giving and receiving, you fall in love. You fall in love. Through that particular deepening relationship, a portal is opened, and your heart is expanded to love the whole. To quote farmer and poet Wendell Berry, people exploit what they have merely concluded to be of value, but they defend what they love. To defend what we love, we need a particularizing language, for we love what we particularly know. End of quote. I wonder what your special place and particularizing language will be. I wonder how you will love the earth, beginning with a grove of trees, a special bend in a trail, learning the bird song in your neighborhood, or planting and tending a tiny seed into fruition. I wonder how you will enter the conversation and listen for your name. We learned this song last week. I'm going to have you just remain seated as we sing Hush. Somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush. Somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? So, my friends, today is my last Sunday with you until September. Beginning May 1st, I will embark on my first sabbatical leave. I started seminary in the fall of 2007, still juggling a full teaching load, maintaining a vocal studio, and directing community theater all together. When I graduated and was ordained in 2012, I immediately began my first settled ministry in South Carolina, and 3 years later, returned to Western New York to take up my ministry with you. Add to all of those accumulated years the duck and weave of pandemic ministry, and I'm a little ready for a break. I have contacted my friends and colleagues to offer you meaningful and thought-provoking Sunday services, and our in-house sabbatical team is prepared to guide this beloved community through the sunny summer months. You'll find information about the team in our newsletter, The Forward, as well as on one of the bulletin boards in the lobby, and pictures have been provided in case names escape you as easily as they escape me. Not only is this a time for me to rest and regroup, it's an opportunity for the congregation to discern your part in our shared ministry. It happens that discernment is the second phase of Church in 3D. What an amazing coincidence. So do the work. Love each other, support one another, show up, participate. This is your church, your gathered community. And it's not the same without you. One of my greatest challenges is holding boundaries, and this sabbatical time is going to test my limits. I'm going to want to just sneak in and show up on a Sunday or call and check on you. And it's important that I not do that. The sabbatical time is for you, the congregation, as well, taking your turn to lead and follow in this dance that we do. My first task of my sabbatical is having knee replacement surgery because I know how to have fun. My colleague Joan Montagnes at the Buffalo Church was recently on sabbatical, and she went to Egypt. She definitely has a better idea of how to do sabbatical than I do. So hold me in your good thoughts on May 5th and in the following weeks. And I need to let you know that Les and I are going to be fine. Long ago, he was a short order cook, so we're going to be okay. There is nothing that you need to do for us, aside from taking your place in the circle of love and care of this congregation. Imagine that the life of the church is like a big, big parachute. If everyone takes their place around the circle, the parachute can catch those who fall or launch the courageous to greater heights. I want you to know that you will never be far from my thoughts. And so I offer you this blessing as we undertake this new adventure together. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. No matter where you go, no matter where you've been, you'll never walk alone. I feel you deep within. And I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. No matter what you feel or what you choose to show, I'm always there for you. And so I want you to know that I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. I walk this path with you. Go slow, dear one, don't hurry. I'll go just like you need to go. There is no need to worry. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. We're going to be fine. Thank you. Thank you for joining our gathering today. I hope you've been inspired and uplifted by sharing this time together. As I tell you every week, and I know you know, but I love to remind you that you can support the work and mission of this congregation with your financial contributions. For those in the chapel, you'll find green baskets at the back, and for those online, I encourage you to go to our website, uumherst.org, and click on the giving link. Or anybody can text your gift to 833-987-1968. Please join me as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Rise and sing to one another. Travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. May the road rise up to greet you as you leave your past behind. I will think about you gently, and I'll hold you in my mind. Travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. We do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel this way with us, so be swift to love and make haste to be kind. Go in peace.